right, welcome everybody. It's Michelle here. Hey, today we're talking about, are you an old leader? Okay, so I was reading the other day a study talking about basically how do you have more life in your years and more years in your life. So not only how do you live longer, but how do you make sure that you have a rich life while you are living longer. And it referenced several of these, what you can call creatives, right? So Michelangelo was still working past the age of 80. Goethe wrote the Faust. He was over 80. Edison was still inventing into his 90s, and Picasso was still working past the age of 85. Okay, so it got me really thinking about, are you an old leader? And started kind of looking around at the leaders that I'm working with. And quite frankly, I'm working with a lot of young leaders because that's a niche that I really want to serve well. However, I'm working with a lot of older leaders too. And I started to think about, how could I help them in a much more intentional manner, right? So I started to have some conversations with people and talk about their leadership and what they believe about leadership. And one of the things that I noticed is that the older that a leader gets, they typically are having the belief that leadership has to be hard or difficult or stressful. And I really challenge that, First of all, there are things that you can do to make sure that it is not difficult. And so that's why I want to work with young leaders and help them understand systems, processes, really building a good team around you so that you're not alone and it doesn't have to be stressful. And as I was having these conversations, I realized that more and more leaders who were somewhat isolated, they didn't have the systems and processes and team to help them. Of course, they thought it was difficult and hard, right? And what I realized is that the belief in the difficulty is actually what's the problem, right? Because there are things that we can do to make it less difficult. But if you believe it, even if you have systems and processes in place, if you believe being a leader is difficult, guess what? It's going to be difficult. Okay? Because behavior comes from belief. And so, we tend to design our lives based on our beliefs, right? So I wanted to share an example with you of how this really changed my mind and changed my thinking and therefore changed my life. So about 8 years ago, I had started off in my own business. I was the CEO, if you will. I was out there really just doing things on my own, consultant work. I did a lot of speaking, a lot of training. Honestly, I went through this period in my life, which I just fondly called, if you will pay me, I will do whatever you want. Okay. Not so much how I live my life these days. I've grown up a little bit since then. But at the time, it was really just, how do I pay my bills, right? So if you wanted me to come in and talk about ethics, I would talk about ethics. Even though I don't really firmly believe in ethics, I think character development is better and more important than ethics, but that's a whole nother thing, right? If you wanted me to talk about curriculum in a preschool classroom, have at it. I was a preschool teacher. I can do that, right? Nowadays, obviously, I talk about the things that fill me up with passion because I know that not only helps me, but it helps you as well. So I'm going through this time. I'm doing work, paying the bills, right? And it was okay. Quite frankly, I just enjoyed that I was out on my own. I didn't have a boss to answer to, right? However, it became very stressful for me. And I really was lacking momentum in my growth, and quite frankly, my business was really stalled. I couldn't make any more money. And I began working with my coach and a couple mentors. And around that same time, I had another family member die, okay? And let me just tell you this, that, from my background, my experience, up until this point, now I'm hoping this is going to change, but up until this point in my story, there was nobody on either side of my family that lived past the age of 70. Okay. And so I was coming up on age 35. So half of that, right? And I was really starting to think about, okay, where am I going with my business? Where am I going with my leadership? What do I want to do in my life, right? So that idea of how can I have not only more years in my life, so how can I live longer, but how can I have more life in my years? And as I began to work with my coaches and mentors in my mastermind group, I really came up with this idea. First of all, focus on health, right? So, if you want to live longer, guess what? Input, output, right? So I got to focus on my health. And so I immediately started, making these lists of things that I could do to focus on my health. And guess what? It's wild and crazy. Like, I don't know, eat healthy food, get sleep, go for regular walks, right? And so I began implementing that and pretty easily because I believed that taking care of my health was going to help me get to where I wanted to go. Okay. So long story short, of course, I became more healthy. But I also realized I need to be creative. And much like those creatives I shared at the beginning of this video, I need to play. Right? So I began to really say, you know what? If I could speak about anything, what would it be? Right? And I started developing keynote presentations. I started developing breakout sessions, kind of coming up with my own work, and just having fun doing it. And I could tell that there was a shift, a little change. When I would go to a speaking engagement, it was no longer about, how much money is this going to bring in for me? It was, wow, what new thing can I share with people? How can I play with this? How can I have fun? And really, invite other people into my fun. And guess what? That right there was not only helpful for me, but of course it added value to other people. And so of course they asked me back. So, ultimately I was getting paid more money because my focus was different. Okay. I also wanted to focus on how can I serve and help other people. So I really went through this very deep dive into, first of all, what is my personal mission in life, but also for my business. What's my mission, my vision, my values? What are the guiding principles that I want in my business? Not just how can somebody pay me, but how can I build the thing that can serve people in the future? And really, I just started dreaming. If I were in a perfect world, what would I want to do? And I started learning about this process of using your imagination to really think about, how can you have a rich life in all areas of your life, right? And now I can tell you that I'm so glad I went through that process. Although at the time it felt like almost like a dying, right? It was very hard. It was difficult. But now I'm so thankful for that because not only do I have a purpose, I have a vision, I have a direction, I have guidance forward, right? I've got dreams that I'm, not only thinking about every single day, but I say, okay, that's great that dream is out there now. How can I begin living that now? Right? I've got a passion and a purpose for my life and my work that I didn't have before. And honestly, Grow by One, the business of Grow by One, is becoming so much bigger than just me. Okay, I'm very excited about the future. So guess what? I mean, thinking about that in terms of this idea of creatives live longer, I am developing, a nostalgia for the future, not the past. So I don't sit around thinking about the good old days, okay, that were in the past. I think about the good old days that are coming. And that belief change, I think, is really, really important, especially when you're leading a team of other people and sometimes in crisis, right? When you're trying to figure out how do we move through this crisis. Right now on my heart is really those education leaders trying to figure out how in the world are we going to do this school year, this next year, right? I get that. But are you excited about your work? Are you excited about your life? Or do you believe in stress? Because if you believe in stress, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get more stress. Okay, that's just how that works. If you believe in creativity and fun and play, that's what you're going to get more of. Okay, so I personally, I don't want to just live longer. I want my today to be better than yesterday and not as good as tomorrow. Okay, and so my question to you is, how about you? Where are you at with that? And my challenge for you really is to think through, you know what? give an honest assessment. Take apart each part of your life. So you've got your personal development, you've got your finances, you've got your career, you've got your relationships, your health, right? I mean, you can add in all kinds of other categories. Sit down and think about, in all of those areas of my life, how am I doing? You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is like highly stressed and 10 is I'm having so much fun, right? Where would you be with each of those categories? And then ask yourself, you know, okay, knowing that this is my number, what do I want to do with that number, right? First of all, where's the evidence for that? So if you say you're having a lot of fun at work, or you say you're having a lot of fun at home, what's your evidence for that, right? If you say work is really stressful, what's your evidence for that? See, your job is really to get to understand you, okay? To learn more about you. So have an honest assessment, figure out, where am I at with these, where do I want to go, and what do I need to do? Just ask yourself the question, okay? Trust yourself that when you ask yourself a question and an answer comes, that's what you need, okay? So maybe you're like me, when you go through it, you know, you're working on this activity and you're like, okay, work is stressful. Maybe that's a 2 or a 3 on that scale, right? And I want it to be a 10 where I'm having fun. So what can I do? Well, the one thing that I started to do was I said, you know, hey, if I'm going to go speak at a conference and I can choose what I'm going to talk about, I'm always going to talk about what I want to talk about. And of course, I'm going to structure it and design it in a way that adds value and serves my audience, right? But it's going to be a topic that I want to talk about. No more am I going to choose something that somebody else chooses for me, okay? That one teeny tiny shift was enough to really get me moving forward in the direction that I'm going right now, okay? So get to know yourself, see what pops up. Hey, if you need a thinking partner on this one, which you very well might need, okay, please reach out to me. My email is michelle@growby1.com. Reach out to me. I would love to be a thinking partner with you on this one, okay? Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. I never take it lightly when anybody chooses to spend time with me. So some of you, you know, you follow my work, you spend a lot of time with me. Thank you. Others of you, you're just getting to know me. Thank you. Your time is precious, and I really appreciate you spending time with me and me having the opportunity to spend time with you today. So with that, I release you into the wild. Go forth and prosper. Have an amazing day, and we'll catch you next time. All right. Bye-bye.